shortly describe what you are going to expect this night. We have two persons. We have Jan Jongert of Superuse Studios, and we have Paul Ketelaars from Vakwerk Architects. And tonight they are going to tell about their projects. But let me first go back to the past. No, it doesn't work. We have had 32 lectures. So Paul and Jan, welcome. You will be giving the 33rd and the 34th lecture in the series Making Architecture. And by now we have had a whole range of different persons telling about their office, but we always asked everybody to really tell something about some very specific projects and also the way the architecture is being made within their office. So not just about the beautiful result, but we also want to know all the ins and outs, what it takes you to finally make a project. We are going to have this spring 4 different evenings. We are going to have tonight Jan Jongert and Paul Ketelaars. Then we will have Lucas de Man and Raoul Vleugels from company New Heroes and Werkstad. Then in April we will have Jan-Peter Wingender of Office Winhof and Herman Herzberger. And he was supposed to come last year, but due to Corona, we had to postpone. And finally, we'll have Florian Boer from the Urbanist and Rianne Makking from Studio Makking Bij. And this year, for the first time, we have chosen to have thematic lectures. So tonight it will be about circularity. Then we will have lectures about bio-based design. The lecture of Herman Herzberger and Jan-Peter Wingender about social change. And finally, we will conclude with water. And because we think that nowadays there's more and more demands also from our students who are engaged in all kind of very dedicated studies, graduation studios with themes like circularity, bio-based materials are really hot topics. So it's very interesting to know more about that. So the night, introduction lecture, Paul Ketelaars will kick off. We'll have a short break at 8 o'clock. Then at 8:15, Jan Jongert from Superuse will give his lecture. And we'll conclude with the questions and a discussion. And let me shortly tell something about the discussion, how we'll do that. Because we are online, it's not that easy as normally. We'll ask you at the end to raise your hand. So you are unmuted. You are muted, but when you raise your hand, and Jamila will give you your turn, and then she will unmute you so that you can ask your question. Well, let me shortly introduce our speakers tonight. Paul Ketelaars, he graduated in 2002 in Delft, and he has been working at Meccano shortly after, and he worked at Meccano. That's also where he met Ellen van der Wal and Francesco Veenstra, the two partners with whom he started an office 3 years ago. And well, they had a flying start, immediately starting with complicated and complex projects, like, for example, a hospital, which is fully electric, so off non-fossil hospital, which is quite new in the scope of buildings nowadays. Well, they have also different kind of companies to accommodate their work. So not just architecture, but also developer, and also, as Paul called it, Vakwerk serveert, about food and like a restaurant. And finally, they are working with a group of about 20 persons on all different kind of projects, wherein circularity is one of the key themes. After Paul Ketelaars, we'll have the lecture of Jan Jongert. Jan Jongert is leading the Superuse studio in Rotterdam, and since he graduated in '97, if I'm correct, and started office Superuse with his partners. And well, I think that with his first project, the project that he made some years ago, like Villa Welpelo, it was one of the projects which was fully made of recycled materials. And I think that, having an office since a long time, he is performing with circularity, developed like Blue Cities, which is not just about architecture, but it's a whole context of how you can operate as an architect, and it's dealing with all different aspects. So one of the things, for example, that they developed is the so-called oogstkaart, the harvest map. And well, now they are having an office in Rotterdam, also based in China. And that very recently they founded kind of collective with different offices with the same ambition and circularity, a circular design, called the Circular Design Collective, where with 250 specialists they collaborate on all kind of different projects in order to make the circularity more common in architecture, because there's a lot of improvement to be done. So I will stop sharing, and I will leave the stage now to Paul. Did I stop sharing? Yes, I did. So, Paul, the floor is yours. We can't hear you. I think you are still muted. Is it correct that Paul is still muted?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think it works now.
Himself.
Yeah, now it works.
Okay, I'm very sorry. Thanks for the introduction. And thank you for this invitation in explaining our vision on circularity in architecture. And I've decided to build my story a little bit in three.
Maybe Paul, can I? Maybe you can put it on full screen mode.
Yeah, I think I did.
I still see it as.
I will do it again. Maybe. Does it work now? In my screen, it's.
Yes, perfect, perfect. Yes.
Okay. So where I was trying to kick off, I divided my story a little bit in three parts. I decided to give a little bit more introduction about how we work as a company, because I think later on you will notice how that reflects in the projects. Then some inspiration in between. And then I will show you two projects we did, and they're kind of special projects for the office, but I will come back to that a bit later. So let me go to the next slide. Yeah, so Vakwerk, we were already introduced. So from left to right, it's Alan, Francesco, and myself. And indeed, we started about 3 years ago, basically with the idea that it's nice to gain the experience we had from Meccano, but it's also great to sort of start over again, because you can think of everything you want to do and how you want to do it. Within an existing office, there are existing structures, which are very nice to have, and we experience, because there's also a lot of energy goes into building up everything yourself. But it also gives lots of different opportunities, and basically we did it a little bit like this. Alan was responsible for the people within the office, Francesco for the finance, and myself, I was responsible for the environment we were working in and we were trying to develop. And then when we sat together about 3.5 years ago, we tried to write down one A4 of what we wanted to achieve within the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years. So we always had something to look back to. Once we need to make difficult decisions, basically we look back to this list. And if we summarize it a little bit, what was our goal? Our goal was that we would create an office between 20 and 30 people, because that would allow us to do small projects, but also bigger projects, and so a very wide scope of projects. We wanted to design from the perspective of the users, to put them very specifically dominant in the process and making something that really fit their needs. We like to have a big variety of projects and people, because we think the diversity would help us to be flexible, but also to come up with new ideas and to serve the project as best as possible. And we wanted to do that within our own space, and that the space we wanted to be, well, big enough that we could work together with other people within this space. From that moment on, actually, it went quite fast, because this picture was taken after 2 years. And so we grew super fast, you could say. And next to that, we also tried it, or actually expanded a little bit the range of work we did. Because the left column, it's Vakwerk Architects. This is what we started, and this is basically what a lot of traditional architects do. There are projects which you do for clients, so you design until a very far stage or until building application. That can vary a little bit, but you always work for a client. In the middle zone, you see Vakwerk Vastgoed. So if I describe that a little bit in English, that's more like developing. And so after a year, we started our own company, because we felt like that we would also like to sometimes work for ourselves, or at least not for our clients, so we could make really our own decisions on every level and every aspect of a project. We'll show you a project of that later. And then a spin off of that one is indeed called Vakwerk Serveert, and that's a sort of restaurant what we have. So at this moment it's not very ideal with the corona, but we think later it will bring us lots of positive things. And because now we serve the whole spectrum in creating initiatives, developing ourselves, and also really using the buildings, I think that gives us a lot of inside information and also different perspectives on how to create buildings, so we could help our clients even better than what we could do before. I selected some images to sort of show you a little bit how we experienced this last 3 years and what we went through in developing. So this is actually the first picture we took from our office. This was in the shed of Ellen when we started, when we were doing the competition for the hospital, which Juliette just mentioned. And we won it. So that really gave us a very quick start. And actually, we needed to create our own space. And we found some desks which we could rent out in another company space. And we really felt like we wanted to create our own space. So we built our, what we call at this moment, Vakwerk House 1.0. It was a good team building project, and it was, I think, also describes a little bit how we are. If we want to do something, then, and if we can't find anyone else to do it, or if it needs to be fast, we also do it ourselves. So this, we identified a final image, which we turned it into a small house where we worked from. So really to create this space for ourselves. After that, we went for a competition of an old industrial building in Delft, and we won that competition. And the competition meant we would also buy the building and we would transform it. I will show you a bit later of that project later on in this presentation, but that became actually our second office. So after 1 year, this was our office environment. We bought the building. It was not restored yet. It was not transformed yet. So we decided just to use it as it was. And actually it worked quite well as a working space. You can see it's quite messy. We just left everything how it was because it was not ideal to already spend a lot of money in it, because we would transform it into another space which we did not know at that time exactly how it would look like. But it created a space where we could all work together, where also other people could join us. And yeah, actually it works just fine. And as you see, for architectural office, actually you don't need a lot of stuff. You need a computer, you need software, and you need a space where you can interact with each other and create ideas and develop them. And actually lots of clients which we had at that time really liked this space, because it really gives a sort of feeling of the startup, which what we actually were at that time. Maybe we still are coming a little bit out of that phase. And I think also sometimes we still want to sort of capture this this feeling again with each other. That office, of course, we transformed it, and so we keep the old spirit of the Ketelaars, but transform it into a more refined space with sort of rough edges. And at this moment, it's still our office. It looks like this image, and I will show you some more things of the project later on, and also explain you how we dealt with circularity in this project, and how you need to think in a little bit of a different way and also act in a different way, I believe, to take sort of full advantage of this aspect. Another picture of this project, and this is also one of the vakwerk vastgoed projects. So the office, it's quite big. We are at this moment with about 25 people, so it's much bigger than what we need. It means the other 75 spaces we rent it out to all kinds of other offices or companies, and this creates actually already this cross office what I just described earlier on in this presentation, in people which we can work together with. And already it also gives some projects, or at least inspiration to each other, to see how you could develop as a company. Then with vakwerk, of course, we do many more things. This is a sort of quick summary of all kinds of projects we're doing at this moment. We haven't built a lot because we're still quite young as an office, and what you probably know, lots of projects takes many years before they're really built. So some smaller projects have been finished lately. That's also what I will show you and explain how we acted in those projects and what we developed. The two projects I selected, they're both rather special, because we were not only the architect in these projects, but also a little bit the main contractor and end users. So the left one, it's actually my own house in Delft, that I will explain you. And the other one is the vakwerk house. That's the office we share with lots of other companies that I just explained. But maybe I think that's what we will also experience in the second lecture, and many more things what you will read or hear in the future. The circularity, it's such a wide topic, you could say, and it touches so many different aspects of our working field, that lots of different approaches are available. And of course, every approach is it's an interesting one, or it's not wrong or right. And that's what I want to say. It's just the way how people deal with that. It's not only what you could do behind the drawing table. I think that's what I will show you in the two specific projects. It also takes really more active role in our vision to do it, because it's still not very common for everyone. So it means you have to put in a sort of extra effort to get the things done which you want to happen. And maybe that's not only for circularity, actually that's, I think, basically for everything what you want which is off standard. You need to convince people. It could be our clients or builders or suppliers. I think that's the biggest challenge of our working field, that we can't do it alone. So you need many people to work with you to get the idea built. And I believe that's a very important role as an architect, to make sure that that the things happen. And there are different ways how you could reach that, of course. And it's never the same. That's also quite nice, I think, about our profession. For me personally, I have selected some slides at this moment in the presentation, which for me are very much related to circularity, or circularity to architecture. I think circularity is something you need to be very creative to deal with it. You need to be flexible, because not everything is available every time. So you need to be able to adapt to the circumstances, which might not be how you expect them to be. And I think if you embrace that there's not sort of full control always, then very nice things can occur. Yeah, because I think, yeah, basically we do it already from our child days on. We play with, for example, these sticks, and you can build very nice constructions of it. And if it falls down, you start over again, of course. It's in Lego as well. I think this is also a very nice reference if you talk about circularity, and because this you can build it over and over again. Every time it can take a different kind of shape, and it can transform into something completely different. For me, often that's also a nice thing. Often we try to create something else of the material than what it was before. I think if you challenge yourself, that it even creates or triggers more creativity than just to make the same thing out of it again. Can also be in techniques. So this is Maat de Baas's smoke series, where he sort of burns a chair, and then suddenly it becomes something very different. Maybe not very circular, maybe it is, because in this case it becomes a piece which people would love and treasure for many years. I very much like this artist. It's a Rotterdam-based artist, Ron van der Ende. And what he does, he takes all old pieces of wood which are painted, which are colored, and then he makes these beautiful pieces of art of it. So it's also, I think, a very creative way, and I think he is a sort of master in creating perspective in it and creating almost a sort of illusion with this material. There's also lots of craftsmanship in this case involved, because you need to bring it together. For me, it's the same what Studio Rolf does. So on the left part, it's a table. It's being made to slice down old legs of tables and construct in a different kind of way, and suddenly it becomes something very different. Also happens in the contrast he makes, for example, in the cabinet, which is more on the right. So doing something which creates a very different perspective on the materials or on the experience, for me that's very interesting, and I also try to capture that in work we do. Another one where sort of pieces which people might throw away, again with cabinets, something very simple, bind it together and it becomes something very different and very powerful. Carpets which is being made of blankets or chairs. So there are so many different ways how you can give new meaning again to a material which people are not using anymore. Selected one which is quite close to you, and maybe one of the first founders of circularity, or made it popular, Peter and Eek, who did this famous cabinets and chairs, also from old timber wood, which is painted, and it creates the same like all the other examples I gave. It makes out unique pieces. And that's, I think, also something which is a very big benefit from circularity. And again, an example which is maybe more a commercial one, but a very nice one. Freitag with the bags they make, and again, it's a sort of unique piece where people can identify with, which they do with quite a simple technique and material which is not being used anymore. So to summarize all these examples, and I will hopefully translate it more to architecture for you in the examples I'm giving in the next slides. I think you need craftsmanship, you need knowledge of the material and creativity, and if you can unite all these things together, it's almost conditionally with circular design that you do this. And it's also good to fail. Right? That's not the problem. As long as you learn from it and know how to do it the next time, then it's fine. I think in our case we do that also quite often. The projects I'm showing you, as I explained, this is my own house. We were also in the role of the contractor, so it means we not only have the design responsibility, but basically also take the responsibility of the execution towards us. Benefit from that, also in my own house, it was that you can select the subcontractors which you want, and I will come back to that later in this lecture as well. I think if you do things which are off standard, you really need to find people who are up for that, who really like to do that for you, because you rely on their responsibility they feel, but also their joy. If people like doing things, then it's quite likely they do a better job than if they don't really like it to do it so much. So this is a sort of final image, and now I will show you what happened before we reached this image. We were able to buy a plot in the city of Delft, and there was a building there before, which we first needed to take away, and we needed to demolish it. And this is actually also already where circularity starts. At this moment, we are quite good in taking buildings apart and separating the different materials. So we see a big container with wood, which is quite easy to reuse again. And of course, we see lots of stony material and concrete. And basically, let me first show you then where it is. In the city of Delft, I don't know if lots of you know Delft, probably not, but this is the new church, and there are all these small streets where houses have been built over the last few hundred years. People change it a lot, and with this white arrow, this is actually the route which all the construction material needed to bring everything to the site. And initially, when we started to design, we were not really sure yet what that meant, or actually we overlooked the fact that all materials need to come there, especially this more than 90-degree corner. This I will explain you a little bit from that later as well. If you zoom in to the plot, actually this is also the final result. And so this is the house we currently live in. So it's really sort of inside the block. And as you see, it's quite close to lots of neighbors. So if you count all the neighbors, we have about 13 neighbors. So everybody wanted to be involved, what would be there. So we had lots of discussions with people surrounding us to see how we could make our house there without them complaining, because that will delay all kind of building procedure processes. So in the end, it doesn't help a lot. And from that, we came to the conclusion that we needed to go into the ground, basically together a bit with the fact that if you want to make foundations, especially in Delft, you need quite long foundation poles, and it was not able to, we could not have the machine could not make the turn, which I just mentioned, and it was also too big to get to this plot. And demolishing, because we were already making the site, we were preparing the site for the new construction, we noticed that what you see as well, that the groundwater, that it was quite high in Delft. Of course, we already knew, and in in the canals it is also quite high. So then actually we came up with the idea to sort of combine two issues which were happening in this location. If you could use the groundwater to sort of create our foundation, then we don't need all the foundation poles. And so basically it's the same as a houseboat, or not a houseboat, or a boat living or floating on the water. So you just dig a hole, make a concrete box which floats into the water. But in this case, it's not the water as a canal, but it's the groundwater which is there as well. By doing that, we would have the volume in the house instead of the foundation poles, and we could sort of push our sleeping area down. So we would not be facing directly or looking into our neighbors, but we would look to the sky, because then the windows would be high in the walls. And when we solve this foundation issue, but then this is a little bit what you need to do. You need to dig. You need to keep the groundwater out, so it means you have very long sheeting, and there's lots of ground which you need to dig out. And sometimes we work late to make this big cellar, which would be floating, so it would keep our house up. At this moment, when people would, if they would be curious and drop by, then everybody was thinking we were making a parking garage, or we were doing something very big and civil works. But we explained that was not the case. And then this actually is then the first sort of result in this construction phase. I see this is quite difficult to get it out again, because it's so much concrete, it's so strong. And so you could say it's circular, because the next owner has to use it, because he can't demolish it. If you demolish it, it will be pushed up by the groundwater, so that's not a good idea. So this is a sort of structure which will stay here for many years, many hundred years, and then I'm curious how the next person will use it. How we used it in the time we live here, we still live here. Actually, we put on top of this concrete part which is in the ground, we put CLT, cross-laminated timber, a house which actually you design it, and it's a factory makes every piece exactly how it needs to be. There's a big truck, and as you see here, the truck could not arrive to my street, so it arrives end of the street, and then you bring the elements to the house with some smaller machines, and then you put everything together. It goes a little bit like this. Maybe the cross-laminated timber is getting more and more common in Holland. There are lots of projects which use this material, which I think is a very good thing, because we absorb a lot of CO2, and it also creates a very nice environment within the house. And it's a relatively clean way to build. So the whole house above the ground was constructed in only 4 days. And then you need to finish it, of course. We came up with the idea because we don't have lots of windows inside, because we did not want to face the neighbors, as I explained before. So we decided we want to have lots of light through the roof, but we did not want to have the direct light. We want to have the indirect light. So we asked the manufacturer of the cross-laminated timber to create these rings for us, so we could put it together to create this very nice, heavy-looking skylights, which gives us the indirect light. And then during construction phase, this is already almost finished on the inside. It just needs interior. And for me also, when the roof went on, it actually became a house. Until that moment, it was still kind of a strange building, a strange collection of materials what we were making. And at this moment, it really became the space. If you look at it from the outside, this was more or less at the same time. It's actually it's already quite quite enclosed. If you put windows in, water will keep out. Of course, it's not good for the material. You need to protect it. And the speed was also incredible to experience. How fast this goes. It can also be taken apart, of course, again, theoretically, I would say, because some of the screws, they really get in quite far. So this is something I think maybe we will have to deal with within sort of 40, 50 years from now, once more and more of these kind of buildings are erected. There will be a time that we have to take them apart. But the very large pieces of wood could definitely be reused, because they will still be good in many years from now. What you will do, the wood will it has already isolation capability towards the inside, but it's not enough to the standards what we have right now. So basically, you wrap it with some more isolation. And in this case, we really liked also to create a wood facade around it. So this is the finished house. And then the inside, I think very nice thing of a wood house is that you can hang everything you want. With a screw, you don't need a drill, so you can change a lot. So we are collecting more and more things within the house. Finishing the house, like all kind of steps we did. Actually, we bought quite a lot of building materials from Marktplaats. Because availability is fast, and there are lots of products available, and it's often a lot cheaper than when you buy them new. And if you have some people working on your construction site, which are capable in making things, then it's quite easy. So you don't need to make lots of complicated drawings. Actually, you can still do quite a lot on the construction site if you want. So what you see, we decided to orientate our house on the garden we had, and did that with a very big sliding panels, which can fully open. Okay, moving on to the next project. This is what we call then the Vakwerkhuis 2.0. So the first one we really constructed ourselves, and then this was the second version I showed you, where we were in quite fast as an office, but which we transformed. And I think first it was nice to already start using the building in this more rough space, what I showed you earlier in this presentation, to really get to know the building and to understand what we should do as interventions and as a way how to sort of fully use the potential of the building. What we did, you see it here in a sort of overview. There are some light blue. Light blue is glass. Every time when we connect something new to the existing, we decided to use glass to sort of celebrate the connection, you could say, but also show a little bit distinction between old and new. And then we added this black volume as the first floor. I will zoom into that a bit later, because there's some nice circular thoughts in this volume. It was also the only place actually where we could extend it, because there was a flat roof. And it's a bit difficult to build on the other roofs. Lots of discussions with municipality because it's a Rijksmonument, so it means you have to be very respectful for the building. And I think we were, although we did quite some interventions. And I think the interventions, we really felt they were necessary to give this building a long new life. Because the building, obviously, it was built for a function which is not existing anymore. It was a boiler room technique. It shrunk the last 100 years. So You don't need a big building for that anymore. But the building is so nice in its space itself that we wanted to make it accessible for as many people as possible. And we also wanted to make it visible and connect it to the city. So on the right side of this image, you see the bridge. This bridge, if you go down, you go to the university, and if you go up, you cross the water and you go to the inner city of Delft. So the building has quite a nice strategic position where it could really connect to all the people living in Delft, but also to the university. But if it's not visible, then that doesn't really help so much in attracting people and being able to facilitate this way how people could meet. So that's the reason, or the main reason, why we added this back volume on the top, is to be visible again, to be open, and to connect to its surroundings. On the other parts, there's lots of restoration, of course, to a building that was empty for many years. And what I will show you in some next slides, we also wanted to connect the buildings. So the buildings were not very much connected internally. They were more all connected externally. This is from the bridge, where we have some advertisement in the top, in light, LED light. And you also look in, especially during the evenings, of course. But before we started, or actually when we bought the building, this was how it looked. So it was a sort of, how could you call this, sort of dumpster of all things they did not need anymore. In our starting point, our first goal was already a bit to just see what is there. There are lots of stuff which are there, which actually is quite nice if you clean it. So everything we could use for our restoration, we kept. Things which we did not, or which we could not really use ourselves, things which were still good, we decided to sell it, because sometimes other people can really use it quite well. If we could not sell it, then of course you try to divide all the materials, so wood, metal, stone, because then again you could turn it into new building materials. And then this is a little bit space when it was cleaned, when all the rubbish got out. And then this would also be our starting point in starting to design. And a little bit how it still looks. Yeah? So it had this very rough feeling. Sometimes we did not have any floors. In this case, there's no floor, for example. And we started to sketch and think a little bit about how we wanted to use the buildings and what kind of functions we wanted to have where. And one of the first things which we decided, we wanted every space to connect to every space which was directly adjacent to the space. And so these kind of openings, when I'm pointing out that this was a door which was there, but there's at some points, or actually at a lot of points, there were no connections. And we thought if we wanted to work in this building, and if we want to work it together with other people, we need these connections, because we need to see each other, you need to be able to reach each other. And this image shows a bit of a combination between openings which we made. Actually, all of those we made, and some we also decided every opening which was there, we also wanted to use it. And then making an opening in this case, it means you need a very big machine to cut the wall, and of course you need a support above to make sure the wall doesn't collapse. And actually, this was quite interesting part for us in the whole construction phase, because suddenly there were all kind of visual relationships which were there never before, and which were connecting all these interesting spaces. And it made you curious also to go through and to experience what was on the other side of the wall. And in this case, every time it was different. Then I want to take you to how we dealt with this new element we added on the roof. Because as I explained, the circularity there, it's a nice factor in our whole process. So what we decided is that we wanted to have this extension, and we knew what needed to be transparent and what was closed. And we had the idea we wanted to use this language of this pitched roof as it was in all the other buildings or building parts as well. So that would be the way in language and shape language to connect and to relate to the existing buildings. Finding the right structure for it was quite a challenge, because we were dealing with a supplier, and every time when we were changing something a little bit, this wooden element became fatter and fatter, and to the point that we did not like so much the proportions anymore of this beam spanning this space. And then I sat with the engineer around the table and I asked him, why is this structure getting so fat? Because if I see old barns with these wooden curved beams, they're very elegant and they're very slim. Well, he explained me why this was the case, and then I said, well, if we like those so much, why aren't we buying existing ones? We have them move here, and then we just make them fit what we need. Actually, at the same time, on my telephone, I just looked at Marktplaats, and I found these beams spanning 18 meters. They were in Drenthe, which is a bit the northeast of Holland. So I called these guys, were exactly the amount we needed, and he was able to bring them. And then the reason was actually quite simple. If something can span 18 meters, it can also span 6 meters. It's strong enough. You only need to cut a little bit, part of it. And then we also got this rounded shape sort of for free. We did not design that before, but it was in these beams. And actually we liked that quite a lot, that it was rounded off. And then we decided to use that to create the space of the ceiling. And so here we see all these different structural elements being positioned on the iron beams, which are in the ceiling below, or actually in the roof. And this guy who had these big beams, he also had lots of other second-hand building materials. And that's all these secondary beams, what you see. That's all existing wood from other buildings, which were, well, they did not fit exactly, but you needed to cut a little bit off. And the fun thing is a little bit, it's structure. Actually, the old wood, it's in quality, it's a lot better than when you would buy new wood at this moment. And it's cheaper as well. So there are many advantages. If you work with a main contractor, then there are some issues, because then they can't guarantee the quality, or at least that's what they're saying. Because for them it's easier to order new wood. But yeah, we decided to just use all existing materials. So if we needed something for this project, then the first thing what we would do is look on the internet if we could find existing building materials. We would look for 1.5 hour maximum, and most of the time we've already found what we needed. And then if we could not find what we needed at a certain time, it's not profitable anymore to keep on searching, because then maybe it's not there. And then we decided to buy something new. On this roof, you see this old roof lights. They were there, and actually in the space below they were quite prominent and quite nice. So we decided to keep them. As I just mentioned, we used the shape of these existing beams to create the identity of the space inside. And so basically the roundness of the things, we extended it into the ceiling. It also created lots of space to integrate all kinds of installations. And so the heating system and the ventilation system was quite, there was some space to sort of integrate it, so we don't see it anymore. And then in the next slides, you see that we have the ceiling. So we solved acoustics behind this wooden ceiling because we have absorption material between or behind the gaps. We took off the pitched zinc roofs to also replace it with glass. So we would also have the vertical relationship between the space. So in this case, downstairs. And this is almost the end result. We created one big table where people can work together. And then these old roof lights, they sort of divide these workspaces into some smaller parts. Something I experienced at my own house, but also in this case, in the vakwerkhuis, that it's very important that that you find people who share your ideas or are supporting it and are really enthusiastic about the project, about the solution. So if you really talk to people what your ideas are and how you think they can make it, they will think with you. And that means they can improve your ideas or think with you. And in our case, that helped a lot to construct what we wanted to construct. Maybe one last example in this this project, we did a very nice steel staircase like this. But we underestimated a little bit the costs. So in the end, it became quite expensive. And we needed a second one, which we actually had designed in a steel staircase, which needed to go up in this left image. But then at the last moment, we thought, well, let's see if we translate it into sort of wooden option. Maybe you can save money, and we could also save at least delivery time. So then, actually, this is what the design became at that moment. We thought if we have the wood, of course, the wood is not so strong as the metal, so you need different kind of support. So we had this circular outer shell, you could say, of all wooden sticks, which were being put in this big radius, and then we had wooden steps around the pole. It became something which was actually quite easy to make. And so we prepared this drawing, we counted the steps we needed. We had the sticks we needed. This is the outside shell, which are quite easy to find second hand or first hand. We made the drawing, how everything needed to fit together. And luckily we had some people who are willing to do that. And then actually, if you think of it, how you could make it yourself, then most likely professional people could do it even better than how you could do it. So we came up with almost a sort of IKEA guidance, how everything needed to be put together. And here you see a little bit how it happened. So we had a wooden pole in the middle to make sure all the steps would be fixated on one point. And basically you have a step and you have different rings which you put on top of it. And basically you build up the step, so stick by stick on the outside and step by step on the inside, with this image as a result. We did not order everything perfectly. Actually, we did not order enough wood, so then we decided to have a little bit more openings in the staircase to save a little bit of wood to make sure we had enough to finish the stair as a whole. We see it from the top. Of course, in this case, in the sort of, if you see it in a circular perspective, the way how you build it up, you can also take it apart again, of course. I don't think it will be a very easy job, because there are sort of thousands of nails in this one to put it together. But I think the way how to think of it, it was quite a nice one. And I think yeah, many things we do, and I think also something we like, if things sort of unexpectedly happen, you just try to deal with that. Of course, in a project which you guide yourself completely from beginning to end, it's a little bit different than when you need to tender for a main contractor. Then it's not possible. I think summarizing some things in the end, because I think this is my final slide. The unexpected things could be quite nice to embrace and to see how you could deal with that in the things you'd like to achieve. And maybe inspiration can come from many things, and try to keep on learning from other people who actually build the things you are designing, because that's all knowledge which you will take to the next project and come up with or clever solutions or nicer things, or creating new standards even. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your lecture. Really amazing. Yeah, I think that you can clap your hands in new ways. Thank you very much for your lecture. It's really fantastic. Oh, I think that I can also, yeah, I can also.
Should I stop sharing?
Yeah, you can stop sharing. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that we will have a short break. I saw that Jan already also is is around, virtually around. I propose that within, there you are. Hi Jan. Good to see you. We'll have a short break, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. And then we start with the second lecture. I would say, everybody, please remember your questions, write them down. So after the lecture of Jan Jongert, we'll have an opportunity for asking questions. Okay, see you in 15 minutes. Okay, there we are again. Jan, are you around?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, hi.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Great to have you here. Well, you are in Rotterdam, I guess, but
Yeah.
here around in TU Eindhoven, so welcome. Great to see you, and we are super curious to see what Superuse has done in the past and what you are aiming for. Maybe very shortly, the lecture is being recorded now. Of course, we will not put anything online, if not requested. So this is just for educational purposes. You're okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, let me invite you to share your screen, and well, the stage is yours.
Yes, hello. Well, maybe with a face first. Hello to everyone. Very nice to be here. No idea who you are, so it's always really exciting to see. What kind of response to get. My name is Jongert, so I'm one of the founders of Superuse Studios. I started my company together with a partner over 22 years ago, and I will show you like 4 projects a little bit more extensive. And I think it's quite nice to have this talk after Paul, where I saw really a lot of parallels in our work. So I thought even we could make it a quiz for the participants to note the one who notes the most parallels could win. I don't know what the prize is yet, but it would be nice. I will share my screen to
Jan,
to start.
there is sometimes a moment that you freeze so that the connection is not very good. Shall I notify you when it happens again?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, for the moment, everything is okay, but yeah.
Okay. Good. I have a little bit of trouble with the connection here today. I don't know why, but I think can see my blue screen, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen and we can hear you loud and sound.
Okay, very nice. This is the team of Superuse as we had it last year. At some point, we were with 21 people, growing since 1997 with 2 partners to this amount. Last year, we shrank a little bit due to some projects not continuing. And since this year, we are growing again. So it's, I must say, the whole ride is a rough ride for Superuse, and we're going up and down the hills every time. But like you see on this picture, we always enjoy what we're doing. We do not just have an office in Rotterdam, but also one in China. In 2016, we started with a partner in Beijing, and that team is running projects independently, sometimes collaborating with us in China. And then next to that, in the middle, you see César Peer. So together with him, I started Superuse in 1997. But since 2016 as well, he made his own studio, and he's more focused towards the consulting and designing self-sufficient communities. So that's his focus. Well, personally, you could say I have 2 drives. I see this image, it's a little bit not sharp, but 2 drives that I present here. I was born in 1971, which was the first year when the Earth was not able anymore to accommodate for the needs of its population. Since 1971, this has been growing. And the date that we fall short is earlier and earlier, the so-called Earth Overshoot Date. So that's on the one hand, we are extracting far too much from our planet. And on the other hand, the right table shows actually that from what we extract, we throw away so much that it's not just a waste of the resources, but even the value of money that we're wasting is so enormous that we see this with our office as well as a challenge to compete this. By the way, the right diagram is made by a Canadian organization that is still calculating the value of our annual losses of materials not being used. Well, in order to work with these materials, we have set up our own methodology where we spend a lot of time first in inventorying our materials. After a sketch design, we're we're actually looking for the materials, which we indicate in a harvest map. I will come back to this later. Then after the preliminary design and after we get the building permission or apply for the building permission, we start actually shopping for the materials that we didn't find in the first place. And then while we are realizing we have a contract with the contractor, which is dynamic, which means that we can still add new materials even during the construction phase. And afterwards, we calculate our environmental impact. To illustrate a little bit how we work in according to this way is, that we're very much resource driven. So sometimes we have a commission and we're looking for materials, but sometimes also we find a material that is already wasted and we're looking for a proper purpose for it. And this second method is our Blade Mate project, which is a line of urban furniture that we create out of windmill, wind turbine blades. And of course, we're happy with the growing green energy, the renewable energy, which at least does not pollute as much in other countries compared to where we are using it. But if you're looking at the components that consist, that they're built of, they're not so renewable yet. And so this is not a boat, but this is actually half of one of the modern turbine blades at the Siemens factory in Germany, which is completely built out of glass fiber and polyurethane. Not immediately the materials we would choose for if we would create a new product, but these are available in large quantities. You see, it's actually quite manual labor. The production of this, you would not expect this from these blades, but actually it's quite labor intensive to build them. It's a little bit like building a boat. But then after 10, 15 years, the blades are dismantled because of small cracks and because the insurance doesn't allow them to last longer. So they're replaced by other ones, or the whole turbine is replaced. And what we see here is an image in the United States where the blades are being buried under, actually in a waste collection point. So this is not really the renewable energy we would like to see. I mean, not the products that produce it. In the Netherlands, we don't have these dumps anymore, but which means that they are cut into smaller parts and in the end incinerated. Of course, this doesn't generate any energy, even it costs energy to burn them, and it actually damages the furnaces. So this is not the way to go. And actually, a lot of studies have been done if it's possible to recycle this material, but actually it doesn't really work out. So our green energy needs a needs still an upgrade from the front side. But from the back side, we see these huge heaps of components being disposed of, which inspired us to come up with a series of products that actually is able to absorb this flow of material. And the first one we designed was already in 2008, where we actually that was the first time we experimented with it. We were asked to design a playground, and then had 5 of these wind turbine blades, composing a new playground. And just by actually cutting a couple of holes, adding some other objects to it, and also using the stainless steel slides, for instance, that were already in the old playground that can still last for another 50 years, and reintegrate them, we created a new exciting playground with many different functions like seats and tables. So that's also something that we experiment with, what the functionality of something that never has been designed to have another function than harvesting wind energy, what it all could be. Well, and like I said, we also got some other components, like from F-16 airplane. Some old cockpits were used as lookouts in one of the towers. And the great thing about them is that they have quite a large and growing diameter, so kids can play hide and seek, which is really what is one of the main features of a playground anyway. Then you have, if you compare to this to the blob designing architects that spend a lot of hours in Rhino creating all kind of fancy spaces, we basically get this for free by just adding 2 shapes that already had this shape and creating a space that is at least as exciting. And then, like I said, in the end, we also calculate the environmental impact. Compared to a standard playground, we are able to reduce the CO2 emissions by almost 90%. So it also has a benefit on that side. We did not just do playgrounds, but as well next to the Erasmus Bridge in Rotterdam, more or less in the same year, we built this urban furniture. After some years, actually last year, the municipality decided that they wanted to create a monument for diversity on this spot. So they asked us, we're going to remove it. Can you maybe look for another spot in the city? What shall we do? And then we said, well, if you're going to create this monument, why don't we turn this furniture into a monument? So we hired another artist to actually upgrade this furniture into a new one. And currently it's like a collection point for manifestations to celebrate human diversity in Rotterdam. So it even got a third life in this way, and that's really something that whenever there is an opportunity, like the normal is to say, okay, we are creating something new, let's eradicate what's there and find a new design, but we always try to reintegrate what is already there in a new design. What's also interesting about this is that because of the shape, it doesn't have an ideal sitting position for just one person, but actually whatever person and build you are, you can find your specific best spots on it. So that's also something that is actually added value by these blades that have these changing shapes. Our first piece of architecture was in 2008 as well. We were asked by a couple of art collectors to design their home in Enschede. And this allowed us for the first time to apply our super-use methodology for architecture. And for this as well, we first for the first time made what we call the harvest map to actually discover the available supply of materials in the vicinity of this area. It's based in in Roombeek, which is the former the former site where a huge fireworks disaster took place, and this actually was the ground for a new urban development, and we were able to build this villa in that spot. One of the main ingredients was a cable reel, actually a cable factory, which was on 3 kilometers distance from the site. After 5 years, they dispose of the cable reels that they wind these cables on. They actually have to pay a fee to the waste collector in order to have them disposed. And then, of course, they are burned, and the wood is either indeed burned as biomass, or it is maybe used for particle board. So that's a low-grade reuse. So we saw that actually all these boards have a similar size, and we thought, well, this is a perfect material to clad our facade. And this also results in a way of designing where actually the measure that we get from these cable reels is defining the aesthetics of our facade in this way, because the length is what you will see on the exterior. Funny enough, we did not exactly, this is how dynamic it is, how dynamics is working, is that we knew the detail that we were going to design and to build, but actually the exact measurements were not known until we really got the 200 cable reels, 200 square meters of cable reel material that was needed. So actually only during construction, the final decisions on measurement and exact detailing were made. We also were involved in the whole design of the interior. It's not visible, but like half of the materials used here is also made out of second-hand building signboards, for instance. So that's, and we also designed lighting fixtures that were made out of umbrellas that were wasted. We did that together with an artist from Utrecht. Well, 2 plans of the villa with on the left you see the studio that I just showed. This is a kind of exhibition and living space, the parking, the entrance, and a guest house. And on the first floor, there's 2 bedrooms and stairs. But what is interesting is that they also the clients also asked for an elevator, that when they would have problems going up the stairs, they would be able to actually use the elevator, and as well to transport goods from between the different floors. And then we decided to actually use the elevator that was used during construction. So I do not have an image included of the actual elevator, but you see the floor here, which is the cut in the floor, which actually is able to lift up to the top floor and arrive behind the door you see at the left. PVC sewage tubes were used for the other direction to have the laundry go to the washing room on the ground floor. The construction of this villa was also very special. It was made out of a textile machine. Enschede used to be a textile industry city up to the 1970s. So a lot of these machines that you see on the left were actually active on the site where this villa currently is built. From the 70s on, all this industry has moved to Eastern Europe and later to Asia. So the machines are not active anymore, but there are still a couple of companies that collect materials like this as spare parts for other factories still in the Netherlands. We found such a machine that you see on the right, which actually accommodated for around 90% of the total steel construction of the house. And we just had to cut a couple of these beams, weld some feet, some additional metal sheets to it in order to be able to connect them into a construction. Which you see over here. This is the not very beautiful image of the villa, but really the flesh and bones during the construction, showing all the reclaimed materials that we were able to use. So also all the wood, all the walls have been reclaimed from other building sites. And then again, we made a calculation of having around 90% of all the steel being reclaimed, which also results in like 85% of a reduction of carbon emissions. We also had made a calculation for the wood. That material we had to actually improve with a process called platonization. It had to go to Arnhem and back. So for that material, we did not get more than 25% of reduction in CO2 emissions compared to new wood. But still, being a very material with a high embodied energy, it really makes sense to start using steel in a second-hand construction material. What's interesting is that I at some evening couldn't sleep very well because I thought, well, are we going to build something out of second-hand steel? We don't have any certificate or guarantee from a factory for this material. And then our structural engineer, next day he calmed me down. He said, well, it's not a problem. We just take 10% additional strength for this, and then we're really definitely on the safe side, whatever quality of steel this is. And then we still worked with a small structural engineer because we couldn't find any consultant work with secondary steel. But actually in the past years, companies like IMD, they consult us on many projects, and we just use second-hand steel for all our projects. Actually, there will be a European norm launched very soon for the use of secondary steel. So we happily see an increasing backup for our work. A more recent project in Eindhoven actually is Kevin. It's a really nice, little bit similar approach design that we realized last year, where on this spot, quite in Eindhoven, we actually were asked to build an addition to this former school building. Very closed building. It was actually being used by an organization that actually does works. Is a creative organization inviting people to do all kinds of workshops. They also wanted to have a little bit more exposure of their activities and a facility for a cafe. So they asked us to design this for them. This is the harvest map of the building. So it shows the origin of all the different components that we used. And that's also like how we design is that we make we first make a rough sketch design of the shape that is spatially works out best, and then based on the materials that we find, the whole building really gets shape. So on the top, for instance, it's one of the similarities is a chicken farm from Voorschoten that actually supplied us with wooden structure, and actually that wooden structure really defined the formal outcome of this building. Next to that, from Barendrecht, we had a lot of window frames that we could use, and even from Strijp S, we could take the whole foundation. We tried to not build a permanent foundation, but a foundation that can easily be removed and be replaced in the future. This is a drawing of how the original beams were cut to create a new free hanging roof by actually connecting the two beams into a solid structure. And all these connections, of course, have been constructed in separable elements. So nothing has been glued, but all bolted. I think from this building, just the glass and the cover of the roof, I mean, really the waterproof layer, that's what we ordered new, plus the heating fans. But for instance, all the electricity, the trusses, like the ducts, etc., all the window frames have been reclaimed. Here's some more details of the construction. Well, the original school building and the addition we built to it. And here are all the separate components that we actually reclaimed and where they ended up in the buildings. We also proposed a new floor heating system where actually sand is a layer between two of the concrete sheets, but that one in the end did not make it. Because that would also lead to a type of floor heating that is can be taken apart easily when the building is not used anymore in the future. The clients also did actually the same strategy that we did. So they also collected from Marktplaats different pieces of furniture, and the whole furnishing was actually designed and built by themselves. And then, some more images of the project, and even the last pieces of the beams that weren't used in the end were turned into urban furniture on the square in front of it. Well, then I moved back to Rotterdam. This is the building where we are based with our office. We have many different hats. We were one of the initiators of the project called Blue City. It was a former tropical swimming pool, 12,500 square meter event space that we are currently transforming into the hub for a circular economy in our region. We have been making a couple of designs in advance to find out what direction we would go to, but in our dynamic approach, we never aim for realizing the sketches that we imagined in the beginning. So it's actually a dynamic design and construction process, which we like very much. This is an image of what it used to be. I've been swimming here a couple of times when it was still a swimming pool, but in 2015, the building was being sold by the municipality, and we found an investor that bought this building for us. We participated as the project architect for this, and Coop, also mentioned by Paul, is one of their partners. is doing the project development for this whole building. This is a very exciting development. Of course, we had to adapt a couple of things. So one of the things is this is actually the base floor, which was all technical space. Almost nothing had any daylight. Of course, it was not accessible for public at all. So the pink route you see here is the new route that we actually cut through this building in order to create a proper circulation. And the building was actually developed from here on the right side. This is the offices part of the building. Then this part was developed. This is where our own, on the left side is where our own office is based. Now recently, around here, the lab of Blue City has been realized, and currently, together with BAM Construction, we are realizing all these office and production spaces. Blue City is really a collection of many different companies, but not like all design companies or yeah, in a similar way, but it both hosts office space, it is production space. So there's a beer brewer, there's mushroom production, there's companies developing leather out of fruit remains, there's companies designing new plastic products out of reclaimed plastic. So many different entrepreneurs also supporting each other's knowledge. And we actually try to design this as an ecosystem, not start and completing it at once, but first starting with a couple of companies, growing further and further. We, of course, in the beginning, still need a lot of new materials and resources from outside, still have waste, but by actually adding more companies, we also want to actually prevent the outgoing waste and adapt the waste from others. So one example, for instance, is that we built in a heat loop where one company, the beer brewer that has excess of heat, can add his heat, and another company that needs it can extract it. CO2 is another other waste that is produced by a beer brewer, which can actually be absorbed by an algae grower in the building. So in this way, we are growing many different connections and aiming for a high occupancy of this building and low need of resources and low waste output. The first offices that we made were designed with windows from a court. It actually also gave the shape to the office space walls because the sizes did not fit within the structure. The design ended up with these, you could say, funny angles. The added value to it was that it's much less a kind of aquarium and less transparent because of all the reflection, and also this reflects sound, so the acoustics also improved because of these angles, which we did not really thought from the beginning, but actually we found out to be an added value. Again, here around 90% of all the materials has been reclaimed from other sites. Even the lighting fixtures, for instance, are taken from a hospital that replaced them. The wood you see is taken from the River Maas. The poles that the ships are docking into, they are cut and turned into furniture. This is a map illustrating the resources. At the bottom you see where all the different resources have been harvested. where in the middle drawing you see where they end up and what the new application has been. And we show per application the reduced CO2 emission. Like I mentioned recently with BAM, we realized the first circular lab building in the Netherlands, which has opened. And again, we have around 90% of reclaimed materials to produce a fully functional lab for bio experiments and hardware experiments. This is a lab that can be used by the different occupants of Blue City, but it also hosts a couple of scientists that do their own research in it. And again, we mapped out, because one of the companies in Blue City produces environmental assessments, so she is calculating the positive benefit of the different applications we're doing. And for the lab, which is one of the smaller projects in Blue City, we reduced 112 tons of CO2. At the bottom, you see the three main contributors to this reduction, which is translucent material, hard wooden boarding, and insulating sandwich panels. On a little bit larger scale, because we're trying to do the same, but with our partners in China, we were asked last year to design and develop a similar project, but only 10 times bigger, 150,000 square meters of program on a former, or actually on an actual water treatment plant. And we're taking this into a next step where we're really analyzing the current process of the water flow on this site, which is not very complicated and not resulting in many byproducts. And we are not just in this case designing according to the program, but we're actually adding new program, inventing which connections can be built, a bit like in Blue City, additional program that can actually use the waste that is produced by the water treatment plant, but create building products out of this, but many more functions that start to interact with each other. And this resulted into a large building with many different functions, also commercial functions, hotels, etc., that actually are able to produce each other's resources. Which led to the concept design we designed last year for the Blue Economy Development Corporation of Guangzhou. So we imagine actually this to be the first industrial site which doesn't have any chimneys, but is able to exchange the waste resources, in this case via the facade, which is accommodated for this. Briefly, a project we're doing for the Dutch Real Estate Agency that's currently redeveloping an former airport, Valkenburg, having these kind of shack buildings. We actually adapt these buildings to new, to again, a collection of different companies, innovative companies in this building, where we repurpose materials, in this case, plastic window frames that are readapted to create a new facade. Quite a nice development, and this was working out so well, even economically. So now we are working on our third project on this site. It's quite developing well, and this is also, I think, one of our challenges every time is that we look for what is the most ugly component we can find. In this case, who would like ever to use these plastic window frame, PVC window frames? But cut them 2 times and readapting them and creating a new facade and context for them, they start to generate a new type of aesthetics. And that's, I think, one of our purposes is to show how the beauty of things that others completely neglect. Well, in order to do this, we cannot just design. This is another parallel with vakwerk, is that you cannot just do the design and expect other companies to build your work. So we sometimes had to be contractor as well, but as well we had to become a software developer, for instance, to create a harvest map, mapping the materials that we need for our projects. We developed this in 2012, showing all the resources that we know, also making them available to other architects and designers and contractors. Currently, this project, or the harvest map, last year has been bought by New Horizon, a demolition company, who is still keeping the open source nature and redeveloping the site at the moment. Next to that, so by having such a platform, we also became material trader. So we have a wide variety of resources where other architects are actually hiring us to support them with their material choices. Like, for instance, this material. It's a steel out of car industry that's being scrapped in huge quantities per day. We like the material as it is and use it for all kind of purposes. We've been using it in many projects so far, like the Q-Dance headquarters in Amsterdam, for instance, or a fence around the villa in Enschede I just showed. SLA architects hired us to supply them with this facade. And we were also a consultant to Wes van Geffe Architect in order to supply them with the same material for 1,500 square meters of the facade. And here again, it's a material that's being molten into new steel in enormous amounts at low cost and price. We actually are able to pay more to the supplier of this material and also have a material that is cheaper for our client. This again is the harvest map of the building I just showed, showing the resources, where in this building around 60% has been reclaimed. Also, we're starting new collaborations, which is a step that we did in the last year. In October, we connected to in first 4 other architecture companies and New Horizon. So Door Architects, Van Aken, K3, Vector E. We start to scale up our innovations, because we found that in the past years we had all done very nice small experiments, but we were not able to scale them up to higher levels and higher masses. So actually now we're starting to share our techniques and really going to look at how industrialization of this process is becoming possible. Now as well, we added the software developer to be added, and IMD, structural engineers, is joined as well. This gives us some time to develop a new tool. So we're currently working with the software developer to create a tool that shows the circular ambitions next to the reduction in emissions and the costs that we save, or that currently, if you're not constructing yourself, often still are higher than if you would use new materials. And this is what I want to conclude with as well, is that we are very much not just developing the tools and showing the examples, but also now working at the lobby to have the government change its tax its taxes, because what is actually stopping us from becoming the norm is actually the high tax on labor and the low tax on resources. So we are currently with a large group of, we have around 450 partners from the construction sector. For the next government, we are very hopeful that they will actually make this tax shift, because without that, it's not possible. We see it's not possible to reach the circular goals that Europe and the Netherlands have for 2030 and 2050. So that's really what one of the things I'm currently working on is to make this shift happen, and also make you allow you to work in this way in a profitable way. Well, that's the presentation I wanted to give, and I hope this gives you new thoughts on the perspective of circularity.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Jan. What a wonderful story. I'm looking now a bit what is going to happen now. Maybe you can stop sharing that we can see you. We have not seen you, but your screen the whole time. Yeah. Hi. Hello. Okay. Hey. Well, it was a fantastic evening. I think that we have been seeing a lot, but it's also interesting to see that much more is going on than you think. I think that maybe also you have seen things of Paul that you didn't know about, and vice versa. It's good. To see that, because I think also we have done a small investigation, as you know, Jan, recently on what's going on in research on circularity, and a lot is going on, but I think also many researchers and designers don't know from each other what's going on. So it's a good initiative to bring together into this collective the different aspects of circularity. I want to kick off with some questions for you. Of course, also from the audience, if you have a question, raise your hand. But yeah, I'm the moderator, so I have the position of being able to start. But I was wondering, Jan, you have been showing a project in China, which was really on big scale. And what I noticed is that on the moment you can say that this circularity, this fully circularity, some kind of circularity, maybe it has always been part of the architectural tradition, but this scaling up in circularity is quite new, is something that got a lot of attention recently. And also, of course, with the BAU agenda, that we have to become fully circular by 2050. But I was wondering, it are all quite small scale projects, and except for the project in China that you have been showing. Maybe it's a question then for Jan. How do you think that this transition can be made from this kind of almost dual project, a small project where a lot of attention and labor goes into, to that it becomes more applicable on a big scale?
Yeah. You can still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways. One is industrialization. So that when the large amount of materials is known, so that's actually step one, is to know the data of which materials are available. So that's on the one hand, it's from deconstruction sites. Yeah, the components that are removed from those sites. On the other hand, it's from industry that has a continuous flow of materials that you can actually always count on. And actually, we have a set of details that we now apply in different projects. So that's on the one hand is that by also having knowing the supply, you can start to standardize and reuse it. And already we see this with other architects adapting the materials that we first discovered the potential uses and now start to use it in a similar way, which we very much embrace. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I think the construction sector has to really learn how to adapt to this. So we are also consulting like companies like BAM, but also others that are more into maintenance and how to actually look different at their projects. So not to see, actually to look at to see the value of different components and to see the potential of their reuse. So that's also something more culturally and in the brain that has been, you could say, vanished in the past 150 years. So it's a cultural development that has to take place. And I think the smaller scale projects very much contribute to the revival and actually people picking up on this. But of course, only by standardization it will be easier to do it. So one thing is industrialization and standardization. The other way is actually, so far it is not scalable because labor is expensive, and we are actually not against labor-intensive projects. We think adding labor is something good for jobless people. So the only thing is that labor is too expensive compared to the materials. So as soon as the labor becomes less expensive, this will also be picked up by a larger amount of companies that can have a feasible business case with it.
Okay, thank you. But maybe in relation to that also, maybe a question for Paul. How you come, of course, with from this nest of Meccano, the big scale projects all over the world. But we have a lot of new regulations in the Netherlands. So we have the BENG, which is coming up, all kind of requirements regarding energy, the energy performance of buildings. And I was wondering, do you, I guess that when you work with old materials, how can you make that they apply to these new regulations? Isn't that a kind of new difficulty to make all these materials and that you can apply them if you have to meet all the new regulations regarding the glass performance, insulation, etc., etc. So how do you see that? Can we make these old materials come up to the standards that are getting higher and higher, or how do we have to react to that?
Actually, that's quite difficult, and that's because we are very traditional in construction. So it means there's always somebody checking it, and if it's a very different approach, it's difficult to check it. I think Jan also gave some examples of it. So they found a civil engineer which can help them making the calculations, because not everybody can. It would be the same with isolation. I can imagine if the isolation is not good enough, you double it or you triple it, or and then again the issue it's probably labor again. So I think I was thinking also about the question you just asked about scaling, because that was a bit the same what we experienced until now. That for the project we did at the Ketelaars, it's about 1,300 square meters. And then you can still find the materials. I should have known about the database before. Maybe it made our search easier. But if you really need to find more or higher quality, I think indeed it can be an issue. So it's quite likely that it will always be a combination, especially on bigger scales, that it's a combination between new build materials and used materials. And I think for me, that's also fine. I think Jan is much more strategic with the use of materials, much more fanatic, and really trying to find last bits and pieces of materials if he can find it. Our approach is a bit different. And so when it takes us too much time to find it, then we stop, because it's only well, not 40 hours a week, but 60. At some time you have to stop, because otherwise it's not healthy for yourself anymore. So we try to sort of find a balance between it, and the balance in sort of working labor, which you put into thinking about something, but in the end also about when and how to find it. I think in the end, if we are very clever in how we detail and how we use our materials, if everything can easily be taken apart, it doesn't matter so much anymore if it's new or old. I think we just need to learn to be much more efficient with the materials and much more respectful with the materials.
Yeah. Hey, and yeah, Jan, you have been working since maybe you're the one which is expert in the level of, when you Google circularity in Holland, well, you will always hit superuse. So you are working in that field since a very long time already. But did that, I think, did it also change your role as an architect? So have you become a different architect than when you would not work with circularity? So do we, as there are a lot of students, how is their life going to change as an architect in respect to, let's say, the more traditional architect?
Yeah, that's indeed very true. That's actually what we already stated when we started as an architect, is that we did not want to work in the traditional way, but we actually reversed our practice. So we do not first design and then force our materials to actually fit our design, but actually we first make an inventory of what is available, and then the design is more or less a result of the available materials. So that's from the like, yeah, how we were trained as an architect in me in Delft first, and then in Rotterdam. That's a completely different approach.
Yeah, yeah. I would like to see if there are questions from the audience. I'm trying to see if I see hands. I see a hand, but I don't see where it is. So maybe you can make yourself known, and then Jemaya will let you in. Rick.
Yeah, I had a question for Jan about last part. So the project in Guayong, I think it was. That's a really big one. And also in relation to how you gather the materials. So that one I think is designed first, but you still want to use as many circular materials as well. And how does that work in international situation? Because in the Netherlands, I can imagine you have found your ways to the right supplies, but is it different in there?
Yeah, well, in such a way that the availability of materials is even like 10,000 fold compared to the Netherlands. I mean, Netherlands in terms of production has shrunk a lot in the past decades, and in China, of course, it has grown enormously. So the volumes of waste that actually would be able to be accommodated are much bigger. And indeed, like for the project in Guangzhou, we first made a design, but actually basically for every project we're working on, we are creating a sketch design that is able to accommodate the program. But then I think that the big difference is that in the process, we are not trying to to frame and to freeze that design from the beginning, but it starts to become adapted by the availability of materials. So that's how it will change over time, and maybe even in sections that are built. So we never have the image that it will look like how we designed it in the first place.
Okay. And how do you do it then in terms of time management? Does it take a lot of extra time to figure out where to find everything, or is it even quicker?
Yes, in the beginning, of course, we were just cycling around finding companies that would be able to supply, or Marktplaats, indeed. Then we started our own harvest map, so that made it a little bit easier because we had around 200 suppliers that we could call for certain materials that we already knew. What's now changing is that actually the industry is also moving in. So in our collaboration with New Horizon, also the Urban Mining Collective has started, which means that certain suppliers, for instance, Knauf or Excel, they actually supply secondary materials next to new ones, which also that's I think also an answer to scaling up, is that you are not dependent on just having new, but maybe they only are able to supply 90% of the materials, and the other 10% by the same company can be supplied as a new material, and they give the same guarantee for both the materials. So that's really we see now in the past, and that's really a move that New Horizon allowed for and generated. The industry is also stepping into this, and this is very much needed for the larger scale. In China, we're not that far yet. We made a harvest map for Chinese environment, but it's the entrepreneur moving in stalled it for the moment. But we have.
I think that the connection is not so very good on the moment. Jan, when you hear me, I think that the connection is not great. So maybe I will go on. Yeah, there you are again. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You're out again. Yeah, maybe we can go on to the next question. Is somebody else has a question? I do not see hands on the moment. But I have maybe a question for Paul, another one, and that is, you have many new materials, there's a lot of work with CLT on the moment. You have recycled plastics, etc., etc. And how do you determine what is circular and what is bio-based? And so far, for example, we have enormous cuts of wood, so the forests are being cut down in a very high pace, and so you can say on the one hand, of course, the wood will come from a good forest, FSA wood, for example, but how sure can you be? And the same is, for example, if you recycle plastic, for example, how you make sure that this toxic material is not coming in the environment, with also the components that are bringing together materials. So how do you relate to that, the performance of the materials?
Yeah, I think that's also a very difficult one, and because the CLT, I think it's it's a bio-based material. It's mainly wood, but there is glue in between. And so I think finally, yeah, you can reuse it many times before you destroy it and before you burn it. Once you burn it, then I think the glue is not the ideal material. There is an alternative, which is called Holtz 100, and that's not using glue. It's using a wooden screw actually to connect it. And then that's always the difficulty. If I take a look at my own house, I had it both priced, because I knew, of course, there was glue in the CLT, what I used, and there was an alternative. And also the house I made for myself had a very strict budget. And then the Holtz 100, it's more expensive. And then what do you do?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think constantly we need to make choices with all kind of materials we are using. It's almost impossible within the speed what we have to develop a project to know every single material which goes into it. Yeah, so for example, also with the concrete, where does the cement come from, where does the wood come from, where does the stone come from? So it's a sort of almost impossible thing. So in the end, it is a choice which almost feels like you need to make it into a split second. But it's not really true. It's not a second, but you need to make decisions on a daily basis when you're designing. Yeah, you are doing it into your design itself. You're making selections of materials, in selecting suppliers where it comes from. And then I think a sort of disadvantage of how we do it, we do lots of different buildings. We do high-rise, low-rise, hospitals, houses, sometimes furniture, and it's in so many different fields that it's also almost impossible to know everything you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I find also very interesting in the explanation of Jan, that he's able to follow his knowledge, what he built up, and to use his knowledge again into the next project, because he's building up this whole ecosystem of materials he works with, of companies he works with. In our case, it's so different every time.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a lot of pioneering, but I think that it's very good that slowly this expertise is being built up. I think that there's another question from the audience. Who is that? Can you be unmuted? Hey, Torsten. Hi.
Yeah, Paul and Jan, many thanks for your inspiring lecture. I would like to ask the following question to actually both of you. And so you mentioned already the complexity and the difficulty to make choices, because there are a lot of different kind of design strategies available, from design with reuse, design for longevity, design with biodegradable materials, design for disassembly, match lifespan, and so on. How do you actually navigate through these different design strategies that sometimes also contradict each other? Yeah, so design for disassembly also very often means more material input, because you need to put in a lot of screws, for example. So do you have, maybe also for our students, do you have any kind of good advice of how to navigate through circularity?
And if I need to answer it, I think sorry, if I need to answer it for myself, then it's almost design from the heart. Yeah, what you feel is good, but I think to be able to do that, you need some kind of experience. So first you need to build up that experience. So I think it's always good to work with as many different kind of people as possible. So I really go for a traineeship, or early in your career, I would say work for different offices, different perspectives on architecture, because that makes you learn faster and makes you explore where you feel comfortable in, and what really is close to your own values. And in Dutch it's called also boerenverstand. So try to think as simple as possible. And if you try to make sure you understand it yourself, if you understand what you're doing, and it's easy to explain it to others, and it's quite likely also quite close to your values.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Jan, do you have a response to how to navigate through different strategies?
Yeah, I think it's a similar answer. We of course we did not accidentally choose our name Superuse. So after 15 years, we developed our approach in a way that we also gave a name, and that's the approach we're having, where we saw that many actually sustainable approaches were a promise for the future. Part of circularity is that you now take new materials and then maybe in the future you will dismantle them and reappropriate them. We thought, well, we do not want to make promises for the future. We start immediately what is available now. We don't want it to be burned or wasted, and we don't want to extract new materials. So that's basically the core that we defined, and that's how we continue to operate. So that's the base of what we're doing. And next to that, we're adding bio-based materials and trying to improve the environment, actually decrease the impact that we are making with it by learning from each project we're doing. So it's also indeed learning by doing.
And what, maybe for both of you, what is the most, how do you call it, surprising circular material that you have used in your project, that where you thought, oh, wow, this is really, I never thought of this, this is fantastic.
Yeah, I think for us, the windmill blades were really a big surprise. I mean, literally big. They're 32 to 50 meters long. So it's something that you see, but you never expect it to be a waste flow. So, and when you look at this, you understand that's a waste flow, then you start to understand, okay, basically everything of the industry I see around me apparently is a waste flow. So I think that to be able to turn that into kind of a product line of urban furniture, that's really an ongoing process, and this is really very surprising, and not. We think there's still a lot to discover about them as well.
Yeah, yeah. And for you, Paul?
I think for me it's quite a simple material, just wood, because every piece of wood it's really different from each other. So there's so many types of wood, so many characteristics. So there's still so much to explore with this very simple material. I still remember early in the vakwerkhuis we were able to buy 8 kilometers of oak, very small, how do you call it, latjes, strips of wood. And I just say, okay, we buy it. And we didn't know what to do with it at that moment, but we thought, yeah, this is so nice. Yeah, oak is a very beautiful wood. But yeah, for every material where our client would be in for, I would immediately buy any type of wood and with any amount of wood to use it. Actually, I'm designing at this moment, again, it's a small project, but a sort of small bed and breakfast to add to my house. And thinking in making it completely with markplaats material. So it's maybe a little bit what.
Well, now you know a new source, eh?
Yeah, or maybe a different resource, but
material banks.
Only buying existing materials, and yeah, because I think it's nice, but it's still something for me for a small scale. I think. I still have doubts how to do it on a big scale, actually, because you need to be so much in control. At least that's my experience, and I don't have the network and the partners to do it on a big scale. To remain, to have enough influence on what needs to be done, and to make sure everybody does what they need to do. But on a small scale, it's also nice. It's also fine, and I think that maybe that's also a nice message. Of course, scaling up creates more impact, but if more people do the same on a small scale, it's also scaling up. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, with this
Power
beautiful
of the crowd.
maybe a lot of small interventions, if we are many, will make difference. So Jan, Paul, thank you very much for being with us. Well, thank you for all the students who have joined in, and not only students I see in the names that I'm seeing. So thank you very much for being here. I would like to have a last maybe notice for everybody before we conclude. And well, this evening and all the Making Architecture lecture series have been organized by Anarchy, our study association, and I think that it's super important that they exist and that they have so much energy in organizing all this kind of activities. I'm of course also involved, but I think it's so important that students, that you organize this kind of activities. So I would highly thank you everybody from Anarchy by putting so much energy in it. And I would advise to all students and everyone at TU Eindhoven to join Anarchy, because that's so important for a bright future for architecture in our faculty. So join Anarchy. That's maybe the last message I would like to give. So for now, thank you all very much. Thank you, Jan. I hope to meet you soon in Blue City. Thank you, Paul. I hope when Corona is finished to have a beer at Vakwerk serveerd in your nice cafe. And for now, have a wonderful evening and see you very soon. And good night.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jan. Bye. Thanks, Juliet.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Wij kunnen geloof ik zo nog in de nazit.